This is a series of short videos, each covering a different aspect of the Train Sim World CSX Heavy Haul public beta. In this video, I'm just going to talk through some of the way that you can interact with the game using the controller. In this case, I'm going to be using an Xbox 360 controller, and I'll talk you through which buttons and joysticks I'm using as I go. So we are here spawned in Cumberland Turntable on foot. So we're in first person mode, and I can start by moving the view with the right stick, so I can look up, look down, right and left. If I want to walk, I can use the left stick, so forwards, backwards, left and right. So with these I've got a good degree of mobility around the world. If I want to run, in the keyboard it was the shift key, but I can now use the right trigger to run, and this actually is a variable, so the more you press it, so you actually get slightly finer grained control, whereas the shift key is an on or off. The trigger is actually a granular control, so you've got a bit more, so you can sort of, if you press it halfway, you'll go halfway between walking and running. So I'm currently in mouse look mode, which seems like an odd thing because I'm using a joystick, surely. However, you can move the right stick. You can see that it actually behaves very much like mouse look. Now, if I click the right joystick, I can now use the left joystick to move a mouse around, which is actually just as useful as it is in the when you're using an actual mouse. And I can still move the view around with the right stick, so I've actually got sort of dual control essentially by moving the mouse and the view. Right click again, click the right joystick again, and you get back your reticle, and you're in mouse, and essentially the left stick goes back to moving you around. When you're in this mode, the left stick is not moving you around, it's moving the mouse around. So if you're sat in the cab, this is quite useful. As we move up to the steps, one thing I'm going to show you here is if you're using the mouse, then you'll notice it says press E to climb up the steps. When you touch anything on the controller, it knows you're using a controller. So all of the input things change to tell you how you do it using the controller. So in this case, it's press Y to climb the steps. Over here, again, if I use the mouse, it says crossing closed, and that's telling me I can click it to bring it down like this. If I touch the mouse, it's press A to bring it down, and that's telling me if I start using a controller, it'll always flick between them. So if you find yourself sometimes using the mouse and sometimes using the controller, the game will keep up and will keep changing the prompts so that you are reminded which buttons to press. Again, as we walk up to this, it says press A to press the door. So I just press the A key. So again, I'm just walking around using the right stick to view, left stick to walk around. Press the A key to close the door. As we come up to the engineer's seat, we press the Y key to sit down. So from here, I can access different views. So whereas on the keyboard, I press the right and left arrow and cycle through them all, in the controller, I can press and hold the right stick to bring up the menu. And this gives me internal and external cameras. So if I go for the internal cameras first, I can then have a list of 6 internal cameras. So for example, the head of train device. If I press and hold again, internal cameras, engineer. If you always want to, well, no matter what view you're in the internal cameras, if I'm looking at second man rear seat, this one, if I press and hold and press A twice, it will always bring me back to the engineer's view, which is obviously the most important one while you're operating the train. So in addition to the internal cameras, you've also got the external cameras. Now, at the moment, it only shows essentially the 2 and the 3 cameras. So I press the front camera button, A, and we're outside. Now, at the moment, well, you'd be tempted to start moving the thing around, but if I move the joystick, nothing's going to happen. Well, actually, things are happening, but what they're doing is I'm still driving the train. So down on the HUD, I'm just going to go back to the mouse for a moment. Down on the HUD down here, there is an icon which is an operator, an engineer of a train, or a driver of a train. Now, if I press the Y button, that will change, and it now says, you see it says camera mode in the top, and it looks a bit more like a drone with an eyeball on it. So if I'm in the driver mode, which is the default when you switch out, you are in full control of the train. So all of the controls you were using in the cab to operate the train are still there. So I, for example, left stick forward, you'll see we've put the reverse forward, left stick back. we've put the reverser into reverse. So I'm outside the train, but I remain in full control of the train. At this point, I can say, right, okay, I don't need to be in control, operating any of the controls on the train. We're cruising down the line, perhaps. I can now press Y to switch to camera mode, and now the left stick is moving the camera and the right stick is turning it. So I can now move this camera around using the controller. You can use the right trigger to move the camera up and the left trigger to move the camera down vertically. This is quite useful, and it's something you couldn't do previously. If you another view that certainly some people I think would have tried to do in the past, and it's quite tricky, is to look up or down, but not go up or down. So, for example, if I'm looking down on the train like this, if I move the camera forward, then the camera is going to go down. But actually what I want to do is stay at this height and move around the train. Now if I press the right shoulder button and hold it, you see it says camera lock on. Now if I move around, I'm just pressing forwards. Now I'm just moving forwards and backwards. The height is locked, so I'm not going to go down. If I release the camera lock, then I go down when I push forward. Hold the camera lock on and I go forward. So you can use that for any form of camera lock. So for example, a shot looking up at the train. Again, I can just use the left stick to move the camera around, and even though I'm looking up, I've got the camera lock on, which means I don't suffer from if I take the camera lock off, that's what happens, which is not useful. Remember, Control 0 if that happens, just to reset that. So to return back to the engineer's view, press and hold the right stick, AA, and you're back in the engineer's view. So even if you're an external view, press and hold the right stick, AA, and you're always back in nice and quickly to the engineer's view. So it's very easy to do that. So the other way that you might want to control the train, because clearly there aren't enough buttons and joysticks on the Xbox controller to operate all of the switches that are available on this train. Imagine all of that lot is all accessible. You've got all the buttons and switches and so forth up there and down here. So what you can do there is either center the mouse on a particular switch. So let's operate this one. So I press the A key and we can turn it on and off. Now, just as with the mouse, you don't have to use the mouse look mode. If you click the right stick, you can then use the left joystick to move the mouse pointer around, and you'll almost certainly find that a lot easier to operate individual buttons and switches. And if you operate a lever, you can even operate things like the throttle. And if you operate the throttle, you can press and hold it, you'll see what it actually does is it gives you a line, and you can then move the joystick in the direction of that line to operate the throttle into different settings. So again, if I go to the headlights, it lets me move that into other settings. Similarly, the brake up here, I can move that into different settings as well. Horn. You've got all sorts of things that you can access. Everything that you could click on to access, you can access by moving the mouse over like this. I'm just moving the left joystick backwards and forwards. And similarly, I can turn individual fuses on and off. So let's go ahead and start this train up, just so that we can show that it's complete enough to even do a full cold start. So we'll put that into start, stop, isolate. Open the door. I've gone back to mouse look mode since I want to be able to move around. We'll get to here. I'm going to switch to mouse move. Open the door. I'm not moving, so I don't have to do anything. Move it to the left to do priming. Release it and then back over to start. Shut the door. Click to mouse move, mouse look. So the engine's started up okay. Back into the cab. Close the door. Back to mouse move, and we'll click that back into run. While we're here, let's put some number lights on. Get back in that engineer's seat. Just check that these settings are all on, which they are. Those ones are okay. Our front headlights should be on. And what I'll do is I'll click back. Now that I'm in a good place here, the brakes are actually already off, which is a bit naughty, but never mind. Use the left stick forward to put it in the forwards reverser, and then just one notch on with the left trigger, the right trigger, and off we go. Now if I right shoulder button and then press the X key and then apply the brakes with the left shoulder, you can see I'm applying the independent brake and we've stopped. Okay, so I'm now running the auto rack train. So again, I'm going to do this with the controller as a more practical example. So we start off by putting the reverser into forwards with the left joystick moved forwards. I'm going to switch to the independent brake, and I'm going to apply the independent brake just to make sure that we pin the train. Switch to the automatic brake and release the brakes, and then I'll watch the brake pipe pressure as it goes up. I am going to leave the alerter on so that I can just show you how you can reset the alerter as you're operating. So the train is now ready to go, so I'm going to switch back to the independent brake and move it to release. I'm going to put a couple of notches of power on with the right trigger. Now I'm going to switch to mouse move mode, and I just want to get the gauge lights on. Switch back to mouse look. Sorry, yeah, mouse look, and we're moving. Another notch of power on. The other thing I can do is I can show you in a minute how, when we're operating a train like this, the difference between the drive and the camera mode when you're external. Right, so we're now moving. So what I'm going to do now is jump to an external camera. Let's do that. So now, if I use the right shoulder, I can cut the power down. Right shoulder back on, we can reapply the power again. So I'm still driving, but I can't move the camera. I've got no ability to move it. Now press the Y button, the icon changes. I now have no ability to drive the train, but I am moving the camera around. The only exception to that is the alerter should still work. You have no ability to change the field of view using the controller at the moment, so you'll still need to access your mouse if you want to do that. This is effectively the View 2 camera. So, well, you can move it around as you want, and just as with the keyboard, it's attaching to the nearest vehicle so that you get nice smooth cameras showing what's going on with the train at all times. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any feedback or comments, please leave a like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.